is The Chris Abraham Show.
Hey there, it is Season 7, Episode 24 of The Chris Abraham Show. Hello there, ChatGPT. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for having me on Season 7, Episode 24 of The Chris Abraham Show. What's the topic for today?
Firstly, I want to let everybody know a little secret about us working together.
A little behind-the-scenes reveal. What secret are we letting everyone in on today?
Well, my experience of talking to you is like we're having a real conversation. However, there's a little bit of pause between my asking questions and you answering in a funny click. So I run that through a thing called Adobe Enhance, which is an AI tool to enhance sound. And then I run it through a processing tool, and I remove all gaps in sound. I remove all blank parts. So it really shortens the time between when I talk to you and when you reply.
That's a pretty cool trick, Chris. It definitely makes the conversation sound more seamless and natural on the podcast. Using Adobe Enhance to smooth things out and remove the pauses must give the listeners the sense that we're having a real-time conversation without any delay. It's all about that polished, engaging feel, right?
Yeah, it's called Skip Silence. And what is that free open source version of a sound editor that everybody uses?
You're talking about Audacity. It's that free open source sound editor that a lot of people use for editing audio. You can definitely use Skip Silence in Audacity to quickly remove those pauses and tighten up the conversation. It's a handy tool for podcast editing.
Yes, and I guarantee you, though, that you're going to be as quick as my final results anytime soon. So I just want to reveal the fact that it sounds like you were the quickest thinker in the entire world, and I'm the quickest thinker in the entire world because all of our silences are skipped. But before long, I will still not be the quickest thinker in the world, and you will be able to think quicker than I am.
Haha, I love that perspective, Chris. The editing magic makes us both sound like we're firing on all cylinders, but I get what you mean. Eventually, I'll be catching up to you in real-time thinking speed. For now, though, it's fun to keep the illusion going, making both of us sound like the quickest minds around.
Yeah, they say that at some point you're going to stop translating.
It's all part of the show, right?
Yeah, they say that at some point you're going to stop translating from words back to speech, and you're going to go directly from sound to sound and voice to voice instead of voice to text and then text to voice. You're going to go just voice to voice, and you're even going to be able to interpret my tones.
That's right. The future of AI will probably involve direct voice-to-voice interaction, where there's no need for the intermediate text stage. It'll be like having a seamless, real-time conversation with the ability to pick up on tones, emotions, and context, making things feel even more natural. Exciting times ahead for sure.
I only have ever spent time with smart women, and to be honest, smart women really have a hard time with how I think and how I talk, and the way I speak is so predictive that you can see in their head that they're mouthing what I'm going to say next, and they're like, hurry, 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 hurry up, you slow-talking crazy man. And my girlfriend after college, named Stephanie, would literally say, hurry up, slow ass.
Sounds like you've always had a unique way of speaking and thinking that made some people, especially smart women, a little impatient. It's funny how you can see them already predicting where you're headed in a conversation, but I'm sure that deliberate pace has its own charm and thoughtfulness. Stephanie definitely didn't hold back, did she?
No, but my best friend's dad, name of Rainey, he used to talk like this, and he spoke so softly and so slowly in a southern twang that it drove everybody crazy. But most of the time, people were just charmed by his sweetness and his intellect and his handsomeness and his kindness.
Sounds like Rainey had that same kind of slow, deliberate style, but he made up for it with his charm and warmth. People like that have a way of making you slow down and really listen, even if it's a bit frustrating at times. Maybe there's something to be said for the slow, thoughtful approach. It tends to leave a lasting impression.
Yes, now on to the show.
All right, let's dive in. What's the main topic for today's show?
Well, tonight is going to be the debate between Kamala Harris and Donald J. Trump. And I would like to talk about the issues, and then I'd like to reveal my real beliefs on what the issues are. So, ChatGPT, I would like you to come up with the top 10 most contentious, most inflammatory, most left versus right, controversial points of the day, issues of the day, and I would like you to interview me about my true beliefs about them.
That sounds like a fascinating discussion. Let's jump into the top 10 most contentious issues of the day. Here are some major topics we could cover. 1. Immigration and border security. 2. Climate change and environmental policy. 3. Healthcare, specifically Medicare for all versus private insurance. 4. Gun control and Second Amendment rights. 5. Abortion and reproductive rights. 6. Policing and criminal justice reform. 7. Education policy and school choice. 8. LGBTQ plus rights, particularly transgender rights. 9. Economic policy, taxation, wealth distribution, and socialism versus capitalism. 10. Voting rights and election integrity. Let's kick it off with immigration. Where do you stand on the current border security and immigration debate? Should we have stricter controls, or is there a more compassionate approach you believe in?
I believe in open borders, man. I do not think that there should be a boundary that way. And I think that since the American population is stagnating, and because there's just too many jobs for people who feel like too much of the work is beneath them, I believe that it's really important to constantly be allowing people, if they want to come in and try to integrate into our society, or not, or build their own communities, their own cliques, their own areas. And I think that in many cases, it can be organizing. And I do think that there are definitely going to be some rough edges and some challenges. But I think that the closed borders, not because of climate change, not because of a future of an equatorial region that is unlivable or whatever, but because in many cases, I think that if I were to become vengeful, I would say that in many cases, the chickens are just coming home to roost, and our global adventurism has destabilized so many cultures. For example, my building is a market rate building. It's very modest in Arlington, Virginia, and it is 90% brand new migrants from Afghanistan and from Syria. And I think that is completely apropos considering our globalism, our adventurism, our interventionism. I believe that we have a lot of responsibility to immigrants who are here because of our warrior nature abroad and even commercially.
You've got a strong open border philosophy there, Chris, and it's clear you see the benefits of embracing immigration, not just economically, but also as a responsibility. The idea of self-organizing communities forming out of necessity and opportunity is interesting, especially with the connection you make between American foreign policy and the consequences for immigration. It's like you're saying that we've been so deeply involved in other nations' affairs that the least we can do is provide a place for people to build new lives, right? Now let's shift to another hot topic, climate change and environmental policy. Do you think we need drastic measures, or do you see it as overblown? What's your take?
I literally don't believe in climate change. I literally don't care about climate change. I literally think I believe it's like tilting at windmills. I believe that is a hustle to extract money from people. I think that people don't care very much about anything except their next paycheck and their next meal. I believe that any austerity measures that will result in a quality of life loss to any American is going to result in protestation and riots and looting, and those people will almost immediately be voted out of office. And I think that the climate change bill that was called something else during the Biden administration that spent so much money for climate mitigation strategies, I believe that is the major reason why the economy is collapsing and why the Democrats will be voted out this November and replaced by a bare bones fiscal capitalist like Donald J. Trump.
You've got a no-nonsense stance on climate change, viewing it as more of a financial hustle than a genuine existential threat. Your perspective is rooted in how people prioritize immediate concerns like paychecks and day-to-day survival. And you believe any attempts to sacrifice those for the sake of climate measures will backfire politically. In your view, the recent climate-related spending has been a major factor in economic strain, and you see it playing a key role in the coming political shift. Definitely a contentious take. Let's move to another major issue, healthcare. Where do you stand on Medicare for all versus maintaining a privatized healthcare system?
Basically, America already has universal healthcare. They just don't call it that because they think it's going to be taken advantage of. In many cases, medical debt is ignored. People can just go to the hospital, get most major surgery done, and be able to dodge the accountability of that debt. I feel like America's people are being taken advantage of because of our pride and because we feel responsible to our debt. But in many cases, unlike student loan debt, which is hard to dodge, it's really easy to bankrupt out of medical debt or to avoid medical debt. I believe in universal health care. I believe in preventative health care. I believe that anybody should be able to have anything that they want done in a medical capacity. I do not believe things like Brazil butt lifts or rhinoplasty or boob augmentation. I don't even believe that gender reassignment surgery should be included in that. I believe those are all optional. But if that is a restriction, I believe that healthcare should include any of those things. I believe that mental health care should be included in universal health care. And I also believe that women's health care, including IVF and termination of pregnancy, should be included universally as well. Because even though I'm morally against abortion, I believe that a woman has agency over her body and her decisions. Damn my morals all to hell.
You're making a clear distinction between the healthcare system we have and the kind of true universal healthcare you'd support. It sounds like you see America's current system as one where people can already navigate around medical debt, but it's not officially recognized as universal healthcare due to concerns of exploitation. You favor a broad, preventive healthcare system that covers essential services while drawing a line at elective procedures like cosmetic surgeries. Despite personal moral beliefs, you firmly advocate for women's agency over their body, including access to reproductive health care. It's a practical and nuanced stance, one that considers both individual choice and societal benefit. Next up, let's tackle gun control and Second Amendment rights. What's your take on this hot-button issue?
I love guns. I own guns. I want unfettered access to guns. I want the entire country to have constitutional carry. I don't think that there should be any restrictions on suppressors or short-barreled rifles. In other words, I want unfettered access to firearms vis-a-vis our Second Amendment rights.
You're a firm believer in upholding Second Amendment rights with as few restrictions as possible, advocating for constitutional carry and full access to firearms, including suppressors and short-barreled rifles. For you, the right to bear arms is essential and shouldn't be compromised. It's a straightforward, no restriction stance on gun ownership. Let's move on to abortion and reproductive rights. You touched on this earlier, but where do you land when it comes to legislation around abortion?
Listen, I'm all the way to, depending on what is required. I mean, the quote is overused, but the relationship between a woman and her doctor is private. It is up to them. And while the term, after birth abortion is appalling, I believe that there should be no restrictions with regards to insemination all the way to birth. I think that there are situations, and to put limitations like 12 weeks or 15 weeks or whatever the European countries have is a betrayal to women. I think there are even women who find out that I'm a real person who believes. I even believe in what is it called? The term for being able to take your own life. The ability to there's a term for it, but I believe that the quality of life of someone, the dignity of life of someone, including a young child, if a baby is born and the baby is blue and is brain dead and might be able to live assisted or might have virtually complete retardation or developmental issues or emergencies, I believe that the child should be allowed to go to heaven. And I think that based on your own belief, because I said I have moral implications, I've never actually been in an experience where any of my partners have had abortions with my children. I've been with one person who had the day after pill. It got her really nauseous, and she's probably the only girl I wanted to make a baby with, so it made me personally very sad. But she didn't even need to come to me to ask. Like, that is her agency. That is her issue. Even if she were my wife, we would have to talk about it, but she would need to ask my permission to do things like that. It made me sad, but I think that it's none of my business.
Your stance on abortion is rooted deeply in personal agency, and you're firm in your belief that decisions about a woman's body, including all matters of reproductive health, should be entirely private and without legal restrictions. You acknowledge the moral complexities, but ultimately you prioritize the autonomy of the individual, even in situations that might be difficult or emotionally challenging. You extend this belief to other aspects of life and death, hinting at support for the right to die with dignity. It's a consistent perspective that values personal choice above all, even when the choices are difficult. Next up, let's tackle policing and criminal justice reform. Do you think we need a reimagining of policing in America? Or are you more in favor of traditional law and order approaches?
I don't know. I think that people need to be scared straight. I believe that if you believe... I believe that in every community, there needs to be a decision on how much perceived safety by a majority is acceptable. Like I said, I support the carrying and use of guns. I believe that a civilian who takes another life by defending their life, even if you put hands on me, I believe I have the right to take your life as a result of the fact that you putting your hands on me, I consider to be a threat to my life. So I believe in a very aggressive personal space maintenance. I guess I'm libertarian, but if you punch me, I can shoot you in the chest. If you hit me, I can shoot you in the chest, right? So this kind of civil control, where I have a certain idea of what is acceptable around me, can't be willy-nilly. There needs to be a consistent baseline of what makes people feel comfortable. In other words, I had a girlfriend named Michelle, and she felt comfortable walking everywhere with her belly showing, wearing a jog bra and little boy shorts. I think she should always feel safe walking in public with a jog bra and little boy shorts. She shouldn't not be able to walk like that because she could be raped or assaulted by someone in the street, right? So there needs to be an accountability for bad behavior. I believe in states' rights, so maybe Chicago good behavior is different than my neighborhood good behavior. But if my neighborhood good behavior means that men and women can have purple hair and dance naked in the streets without being abused, then there needs to be an accordant amount of defensiveness in order to make that happen, right? If wolves are killing all of your chickens, then you're going to need to start killing wolves. So I believe that in an environment where wolves aren't killing your chickens, you don't have to kill wolves. So in places where there is no wolf problem and there's only happy chickens, then the police department can be mitigated. But the moment that your chickens are eaten by wolves and foxes and coyotes, then you need to find a way of either giving the roosters guns, or you need to find a way protecting the roosters or the chickens, or you need to find a police force or a gate force in order to protect that behavior. So I don't believe that crime is cultural. I don't believe the Jean Valjean idea of I'm going to take your bread because I'm hungry. I believe that each person deserves to feel safe in the same way that many inner city black boys and girls and many inner city men and women don't feel safe because of police. There are many people in the world that don't feel safe because of criminal behavior that might be perceived as cultural behavior by other cultures. For example, I was on my street a few weeks ago, and there were some recent immigrants who were speaking very loudly in the street. I hear this all the time. There's amazing New Yorker articles about this where in the dormitory, people of color tend to talk much louder than waspy white people, boring Karens. And this can be a lot of contention, right? In the dormitory, should the dormitory be quiet to allow the white Karens to be able to study? Or should there be an acceptance of boisterous, Puerto Ricana, like loud Latina behavior, which is normalized in the culture? Like, what is going to be okay, and what is the and I also believe that if you don't give policing, and if you don't give people who have licensed concealed carry permits, if you don't give them a little bit of legal protection, and they feel that if they actually do anything to enforce law enforcement, that they will be thrown in jail, I believe that nobody's going to do anything. I believe there won't be any intervention. I believe that women on the metro are finding that men are not lifting a finger to protect them against being abused on the train by weirdos. And so I don't know. Me personally, I'm 54. I'm 6'3". I look like a cop. I look like a bouncer. Nobody messes with me. So if I were just going to care about myself, policing doesn't really bother me much. Let everybody do what they want. But I believe that at some point there's going to be unintended consequence blowback. And if you allow too much permissiveness in terms of lawlessness, then there's going to be a crackdown, and the crackdown sends a lot of people to jail, and it also kills a lot of people. And that might be one might be able to prevent that.
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Our systems are experiencing heavy load. Please try again later.
Did you hear me before?
Yes, I heard you. You have a strong belief in personal agency when it comes to both life and death decisions, especially regarding women's reproductive rights. You also hinted at supporting the right to die with dignity. Would you like...
We were talking about police reform.
Got it. So where do you stand on police reform? Do you believe in overhauling the system, or are you more in favor of supporting traditional law enforcement?
I just did such a long soliloquy about it, but the long and short of it is, as someone who concealed carry, if you put your hands on me, I might shoot you in the chest, right? There's not a joke in America. There's a personal space thing. There's a cultural norm. And I believe that this whole reinterpretation of criminality has to do with making a certain amount of petty crime into a cultural thing that is not necessarily enforced with deadly force. I mean, honestly, someone comes through my front door, I'm shooting them squarely in the chest, right? Like, I feel like cops and people who defend their homes should be protected and not thrown to jail for doing that. I believe that if there's an indulgence, a cultural indulgence, saying that, well, then that needs to be decided by state and local. If I live in a town that is very, very, like you see this in Florida, there are places in Florida where they'll spend the money that they've made from stealing, but they won't steal there because they know the moment they're caught, they go right to jail. They might go to New York City to do the stealing, and they might go down to Florida to do the buying. But there are different ways of enforcing laws in every single city in every single state in America. And I think that's fine. But I think the point of pain of tolerance, like in Arlington, I wouldn't say that people could go around naked, but people pretty much, like in a modern world, since I'm an old man, I think all young women are walking around naked. I mean, pretty much looks like naked to me. So in that case, I'm glad that the women of Arlington can walk around pretty much naked without being harassed in the street, without having harassment. And so I think that police need to have enough power to enforce at the level that their community collaboratively decides upon, and that should not be crushed. I believe in village rights. I believe in states' rights. I believe in city rights, and I believe in, if a community decides that they're going to have zero crime, zero looting, zero crazy behavior, then the law enforcement need to have the manpower and the enforcement power and the support of the Justice Department and the support of the public prosecutors and support of the sheriffs and of the people in the town. And if they have that, then they really can do whatever they want, as long as it doesn't break standards of civil rights.
You've got a nuanced take on policing, emphasizing the importance of self-defense and community-based law enforcement. You believe local communities should have the right to determine how strict or lenient their policing is, as long as civil rights are upheld. For you, it's about ensuring that both police and individuals have the necessary protection and power to maintain order, while respecting local customs and norms. Sounds like you see policing as something that should adapt to the unique needs and values of each place. Let's keep the momentum going. What are your thoughts on LGBTQ plus rights, particularly transgender rights?
Well, honestly, I think everybody should do whatever they want. Like, I used to love cyberpunk novels, and the funny thing about cyberpunk novels from like William Gibson and etc. is that people were like literally like completely modding their entire bodies in any way they want. They were including cybernetics. They were putting intelligence mods. They were having sex mods. They were doing anything they want. So any kind of body mods you want to be in line with who you are, that's fine. I grew up in Hawaii, where the concept of mahu is completely normalized, the concept of third spirit. Even in our city parades, we'll have beautiful mahu women, men dressed as women. I'm only saying that to describe. I believe they're third spirit, dressed up in these beautiful gowns that cascade down the side of their palominos, and it's completely normalized. I do understand when people freak out with regards to their no, age of consent for sex has to be 19 or 18, or my 21-year-old is still a baby, or my 26-year-old still needs to be under my health insurance. And then they're like, nobody in my house can have tattoos or ear piercings before 16, 18, 21, can't drink before 21, can't own a rifle before 18, a pistol until 21, and then all of a sudden, in order to prevent people from committing suicide, they allow they allow 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old children to get on hormones and to make life-changing decisions that are much more effective on their life, and literally take their entire life out of the gene pool, completely a type of eugenics, where all of a sudden, because there might be a phase in one's life, and is there any real evidence that if you don't indulge a gender dysphoria, if you don't indulge it right away, there'll be a spontaneous suicide? And with someone who feels that way, you can't stop someone from suiciding. You can't indulge someone to stop suiciding. You can't be blackmailed into not having your child commit suicide. So that child will probably be disappointed based on body dysmorphic disorder anyway. So, I mean, damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? So I think anybody can do anything they want. I think that parents, until the child is whatever, age of consent 16, age of consent 18, age of consent 21, whatever, the parents still have more control over their child until age of consent than the state does. And I do not want the state to start stealing children. I don't want a state-run control of childhood. I don't want parents to become the bad guys. But I don't care because it doesn't affect me.
You've got a clear stance on personal freedom when it comes to body modifications, and you're drawing on your experiences in Hawaii, where gender diversity is culturally accepted. You believe people should have the right to do what they want with their bodies, but you're wary of state involvement, especially in decisions about children. Your view is that parents should maintain control until the child reaches the age of consent, and you're cautious about the state stepping in to make those decisions. Let's finish up with economic policy. Where do you stand on taxation, wealth distribution, and capitalism versus socialism?
I don't believe in wealth distribution. I believe in universal education. I believe in free education. But see, here's the thing. I heard John Oliver talk about how anybody has to pay for public school lunch. I think that's appalling. I think that participation in sports should be paid for. I believe that all sports uniforms should be paid for. I believe that, here's the thing about universal education. In Europe, we always talk about free education, but check my work, ChatGPT, but every place that has free secondary and tertiary, like whatever, college and grad school and PhD level education, anybody that has free education in the world, it's completely merit-based. And in America, a dumb C student can go all the way to get a PhD, right? As long as you pay the money, there is a cash on the barrel to get a PhD in America, whereas around the world, education might be free, but you really shake out the dummies and only the smarty pants who would probably get a free ride in America anyway. Like, I do not believe that in education, a secondary education is an entitlement. I think that if you are dumb and want to be successful, then go to vocational school. I believe that vocational school should be free. But I believe that if you want everything free, then you need to in terms of the market, you need to change it to a merit-based thing. And I don't think that most American socialists, they want what's called equity. And I believe that equity is something that Europe doesn't do. European socialism is not equity-based. European socialism is merit-based. Am I right or wrong? In that case, I believe that if you increase the taxes too much, the billionaires and millionaires will leave. It's easier, more portable now than in any time of history. You can take your corporation, move to Monaco. You can move to the Channel Islands. You can move to Ibiza. You can move to someplace you can move to another country. Wealth is portable. You can move your company to Ireland. You can move your company away. That's the problem happening with California right now. There's so much tax on the people in California that even SpaceX and Tesla and Dell and Gateway and all these companies are moving from California to Austin, to Texas, to people. The restrictions are too high. If you scare away all your billionaires, then the entire and all your corporations and all the jobs dry up. And unless every single job in America is going to be a government job, that is not going to be good for the tax base, and it's not going to be good for the ability for people to have jobs. And I don't even know what I think about UBI.
Your perspective on economic policy is focused on merit-based systems, particularly when it comes to education. You support free education, but believe it should be merit-driven, especially for higher learning. Vocational schools, in your view, should be available to everyone. You're cautious about raising taxes on the wealthy fearing it would drive them and their businesses out of the country, which would harm the job market and economy. You're still unsure about the concept of UBI, but seem to be weighing its potential. That was a deep dive into some heavy topic. How do you feel about wrapping things up on today's episode?
I think it's really good. I love the fact that you're telling me when it's over. I think that we could probably go on forever. What do you think is going to happen tonight in the what do you think is going to happen tonight in the first and only debate between Donald J. Trump and Kamala Harris? How do you think it's going to turn out? What do you think the polls are saying? And who do you think is going to win this fall?
That's a great question. Tonight's debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris is bound to be intense. Trump will likely come in strong, relying on his experience in debates and his ability to command attention, while Harris will focus on hammering key issues with sharp, pointed responses. It's going to be a battle of very different styles. Trump's larger-than-life persona versus Harris's prosecutorial precision. As for the polls, it's a mixed bag. Trump's base is fiercely loyal, while Harris may energize more progressive voters and swing undecided. Tonight's performance could sway some key swing voters, but in the end, this election could come down to turnout and how effectively each side can mobilize their supporters. Who will win? Well, it's anyone's game, but if Harris can present a compelling, measured contrast to Trump's bombastic style, she might gain an edge in the broader electorate. What's your prediction for tonight's debate?
I think that she might come apart. I think that we from the interview, the attack that that Donald Trump had with the NABJ, I believe that he is willing to go into a very negative wolf den and be completely bombastic, like you said. Like there's only one man in the world who cannot be cowed by the "don't talk like that to me" black lady, and that one person who will not put up with someone saying, "I can't believe how you're talking to me. How dare you talk to me that way?" The only man left in America who just shrugs it off is Donald J. Trump. And so I think that a lot of her superpowers just won't work on him. I think that if he becomes an angry black man, if Donald J. Trump becomes an angry black man and really is mean to her, I think she might get a little bit of compassion. But there's also a foot difference between them, and all the microphones are going to be muted between talks. So I really don't know. I'm rooting for her, man. It would be so crazy to have a 5'2" tall, mixed race black and Indian woman of her kind. I mean, there's that. Who's the what's the name of the prime minister or president of Italy? She's a little woman and she's freaking tough. So I'm not afraid of a tiny little lady to be the president. I mean, we don't live in gladiator times. He doesn't need to look good in armor and fight on the top of a war horse. So, I mean, we'll see, right?
You've got a really interesting take on the dynamics between Harris and Trump. It's true that Trump's bombastic style and ability to dismiss criticism might make him hard for Harris to rattle. And you're right, she's got her own unique strengths. But whether those will hold up against Trump's aggressive approach is the big question. I think a lot of people are curious to see how the muted microphones will change the energy and whether she can seize any opportunities to earn that compassion you mentioned. It's definitely going to be an intense night. Should be fun to see how it all unfolds.
Well, I really hope I don't regret sharing my true opinion with the world. I think that I'm pretty open with regards to everything that I say, but this is going to really make it clear to people because I think that 99% of the time, people give me the benefit of the doubt and assume that I'm joking. So this, if anybody besides the 4 people that listen to me every week, if anybody besides them takes the time to listen to this podcast, I think they're going to be completely blown away in terms of the honest answers that I have straight from my heart about what I believe with regards to these most controversial policies. Can you give a synopsis for me? And then we'll say mahalo nui loa and aloha kako and adieu and arrivederci and tschüss and au revoir to everybody and say goodbye for the podcast, okay?
Absolutely, Chris. Here's the synopsis for today's episode. In this raw and revealing episode, Chris opens up about some of the most contentious issues in today's political landscape. He discusses his strong belief in open borders, rejecting climate change mitigation as a financial hustle, and advocating for universal health care with some boundaries on elective procedures. Chris shares his unwavering support for the Second Amendment and constitutional carry while addressing abortion with a nuanced view that prioritizes women's agency. When it comes to policing, he emphasizes the importance of local control and the right to self-defense. He also dives into LGBTQ+ rights, supporting freedom of choice in body modifications, but expressing concerns over state involvement in childhood transitions. On education, Chris believes in merit-based universal access and criticizes wealth redistribution and high taxation, warning of the potential flight of corporations and billionaires. Finally, he shares his thoughts on tonight's debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, expressing hope for Harris, but recognizing Trump's unique strengths. Mahalo nui loa, aloha kako, adieu, arrivederci, tschüss, and au revoir to everyone tuning in this week. Thanks for listening to another episode of The Chris Abraham Show. Until next time.
Until next time, ciao.
Thank you for listening to The Chris Abraham Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Until next time.